Good morning, and welcome to New Haven Innovation Podcast and Radio Show. You're here listening to New Haven Innovation on WNHH LP 103.5, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven at the New Haven Independent, streaming live on TuneIn Radio and newhavenindependent.org or Facebook Live. We're here this morning with Margaret Lee and Caroline Smith, who are the directors of Collab, an entrepreneurial training program here in New Haven. This is really exciting and one of the programs supported by the Elm City Innovation Collaborative. So good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're able to join me here this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Is my mic working?
Your mic is definitely working.
It's definitely working?
I can hear you.
Awesome.
I think everybody else can hear you. Everybody else can go on Facebook Live and comment that they might be able to hear you.
Amazing.
Perhaps. So starting off, just what is Collab?
I feel like first, can we kick it off by noticing Margaret's incredible sweater, which is sparkling.
It is. Oh wow, that is really
on the screen.
On the screen.
You know, I'm insulted that this is happening before Thanksgiving. You know, it just seems a little aggressive.
Very
on
festive.
On the holiday theme.
I am a Christmas tree.
Yeah, you are. Your question was, what is Collab?
that it was, but feel free to
answered it.
It's Margaret Sparkling.
Yeah, exactly. So Collab is an accelerator for Connecticut entrepreneurs. Our main heart and our main mission is making entrepreneurship accessible in the state of Connecticut. And we have kind of three parts to our model. One is access, where it's really important to us to make sure that we're addressing some of the psychological, logistical, and financial barriers to entrepreneurship in our programming. Two is confidence. And that's where we focus a lot on supporting individual entrepreneurs in building beliefs around the work that they can do, because oftentimes entrepreneurship feels like something that doesn't belong to everybody. And then lastly is pathways. We focus our programming on a really early stage for entrepreneurs, but what happens after our programming and how do we build connections around the region, around the state, so that we provide a smooth pathway for entrepreneurs after they leave our programming.
So what is entrepreneurship?
What is entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is building something that can benefit you, that can benefit your community, and that has some sort of impact on the city or even your neighborhood or the state or the world.
And so that has a pretty wide view. So what are some of the things that people are building who are coming through your program?
Yeah, a whole range. Let's see, some that come to mind. Probably you all know Domingo Medina. He started Peels and Wheels Composting, which is a neighborhood-based bicycle-powered composting service based right here in New Haven. And he is amazing. He's an immigrant to America who has a very specific and focused environmental justice mission for his work. And he brings an incredible love of New Haven to the city.
We have Pascal's Body Care, Sade Jean-Jacques, one of our favorite entrepreneurs. She's creating wellness products specifically designed with Black women in mind, but for anybody. And her mission is to decolonize wellness and sort of expose through her products and marketing and storytelling, as well as education, sort of the way that oppression shows up in different ways in the wellness industry. We also have projects like Nestle, entrepreneur named Della. She's sort of an architect, and she's working on modular lactation rooms for office spaces and co-working spaces and different public spaces that are designed beautifully for women or anyone who is nursing and needs a really amazing space to do that.
And I think the theme among all of these ventures is that they bring a level of expertise to the work they do, and that could be schooling or their education or their past career, but most importantly, it's their lived experience that they bring to the work that they do. Whether they have experience of being a mom, experience as being a Black woman, trying to look for body care products, and all of those, and that kind of expertise is some of the most grounding and foundational expertise that they bring to their success.
And so, I mean, it's sort of almost like a trope that they make fun of on Silicon Valley, that like tech entrepreneurs want to like better the world and change the world, but what you've been describing is really at the core of the mission of what these different groups are doing, is really having an impact above and beyond growing and really launching a company. How much is that at the core of what you look for when you're going about selecting teams to go through the program?
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's a question we get a lot. Like, do we have a social impact focus? Is that an
Mhm.
explicit part of what we do? When we do outreach to get applications, do we say you must have a social impact? We don't. Like, we don't say anything about that. But what we do focus on is we want different faces. We want different people, people who have not had access to these kinds of resources before. And we've seen that those folks come to us with a social impact, whether we ask for it or
Mhm.
not.
That's what they want to work on.
Yeah, that's just what they bring to the work. And I think that speaks to, entrepreneurship and sort of startups and innovation has been around for a long time. What happens when the faces change? Like when we bring other people in, what are the possibilities around entrepreneurship when there's just different people at the table who are thinking about things differently, who are coming to the work with their life experience, with their specific knowledge. Like, we're excited about that change on a collective level. Like, if we change who we support.
I think what I'd add to that too is we have a focus on Connecticut entrepreneurs and individuals who want to make an impact in New Haven or in Connecticut, at least at first, and they can be excited about scaling out. And I think, and maybe this is me also just speaking from my personal experience, I think when you sort of link efforts and projects with a passion for a place, I think that often really deeply correlates with an interest in impacting that place because it's derived from a knowledge and a love of place and the people there. And so I think that's also contributes to why we get so many entrepreneurs who want to make an impact on this place because it's driven by a love for New Haven, a love for Connecticut.
So one of the things I'm hoping to talk about today is just the different ways that Collab as a program is different from other types of business coaching or small business programs that might exist that really might be more, say, skills focused. And so I'd like to take that as a theme through what we're talking about today. But I want to press a little bit farther into how do you go about finding people to apply to your program? How do you recruit them? How do you motivate them? Where are these people coming from that become Collab Ventures?
So that's been something that's been really important to us to the beginning. And I think always our outreach has been really organization and individual based. So we'd work with different community groups and different neighborhoods, whether that's Junta or the management teams who have broad connections and networks with a lot of different folks. And those groups not only sort of can help distribute, but also can inform our processes as well, inform whether and how we do translation or interpretation, so they can be supportive of us in terms of how do we make our programming, our outreach more accessible to the groups that they work with. And then that also applies outside of organizations too. There are plenty of individuals, and I think we all know them. Individual sort of nodes in different neighborhoods, or even on specific streets that know their street, know their neighborhood really well. And those individuals are our friends and people that we get to know who can also be supportive in spreading the word. And I think one thing I'd add to that too is I think it's really been, so we've now been doing this for about 3 years, 2 years full time. And I think it's really been this summer, so really kind of 2 years into the work we've been doing, where we've noticed a kind of word of mouth, a kind of critical mass effect where we obviously do outreach and do continue to do continual outreach, especially spreading beyond the networks we currently have. But let's just say our office hours program, which we can talk more about, we don't have to do outreach around that. They're full often, and we don't have to work very hard for those to be full. And I think that's been an exciting shift to watch just in this last summer. But it took 2 years to get to that point, and we have a hunger for so much more than what we have right now. Would you add anything?
Great. So, so you're going out very much on a word of mouth, person to person outreach through the networks that exist in New Haven, and that seems to be paying dividends, particularly as graduates of the program are talking about it very positively. So, how many people do you get that apply to a particular cohort? How large is a cohort that goes through the program?
Yeah, we get anywhere from I think like 40 to 70 applications per cohort, and we're able to accept anywhere from 6 to 10 ventures depending on which cohort we're talking about. And so that ends up being anywhere from like 10 to 20 people in each cohort.
And so what does it mean to be part of a cohort? What's the program that you run through? And what is that experience of showing up on the first or second or third evening?
Yeah, so the Accelerator is a 12-week program, so about 3 months. So they're with us for a long time. The essential components are a 12-week educational curriculum, once per week, Wednesday, 6 to 8, a one-on-one session with us, where we can do, outside of the actual curriculum, sort of goal setting, individual tailored goal setting for that individual venture. They get paired with a mentor in our mentor network, which we can talk more about. They get $1,000 of seed funding, which allows them to do some of that initial testing and iterative work, which we can again talk about how we landed on $1,000 and why seed funding. They get case-by-case access to pro bono services, so things like legal, marketing, accounting, kind of the nitty-gritty stuff of building their venture. And then this all culminates in a pitch day at the end. And this pitch day is like a celebration of the hard work and progress they've done, as well as a pretty intentional space where we bring in possible investors, partners, community members who can be supportive of their work. And then as a part of that program and in all of our program, we would provide childcare, transportation, and interpretation services to make sure that entrepreneurs can be successful while they're working with us.
And so what is really the core of the education that they're getting in those 12 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned confidence, but what are some of the lessons on those Wednesdays?
Yeah, so we start off in the first half of the program with super basic entrepreneurship fundamentals. So everything from who is the customer that you're trying to serve, what is the value you're trying to create, how do you know that your guesses about that are right, how do we test your assumptions around that? So really foundational work, just like that helps folks sort of refine their idea, come up with a really good guess that they're going to continue to test throughout their entire life cycle, right? But come up with a really good hypothesis for what they're trying to do. So that's what we spend the first half of the program in. And the second half, we get into sort of a dual purpose section, which is both exposure and information. So this is with a law firm, an accounting firm, a marketing firm, as well as some sessions with those firms, as well as sort of business planning. And we do like pitch workshops and things like that at the end. So we build the foundational stuff, and then we build some of the more subject matter skills-based stuff on top of that. And I would say, it's not like an explicit part of the curriculum, but one thing that we really do stress, and this is something that comes up in our one-on-one sessions. So our one-on-one sessions with each entrepreneur, once per week, an hour per week, where we sit individually with each venture. And that is an opportunity for us to set milestones together, set goals, and make sure that they're progressing and that there's some mechanism for accountability, and we make connections, we brainstorm together, we talk about obstacles. But I think like some of the most powerful moments in those one-on-ones have been about obstacles that aren't necessarily like what you'd expect or what you would think is related to just building their venture. So things like, what are they coming into today with? What's happening in their family life? Like, how are they viewing their relationship with math? And what does that have to do with their identity? How, as a female entrepreneur, they just had a really weird meeting yesterday. How is that showing up to today? And sort of stopping for a second and kind of closing our laptops and connecting one-on-one with these entrepreneurs and sort of what the milieu is for them, right? And how that impacts the work has been some of our most fruitful conversations, really productive. I think when people say that this program really changed their lives or changed the way that they approach their work, those are the moments that really sort of create that, I think. And so not an explicit part of the curriculum, but I would say in terms of education, showing up for oneself, like showing up to their entire lives and making sure, like, and believing that that's a part of it, I think is also an education that we go through in the program.
Milieu. Did you take French in high school, Margaret?
Yes.
It's also a word.
It's an English word.
Oh, never mind. It sounded French. It sounded nice when she said it.
Most of what you said sounded pretty nice. The impact of that kind of personal connection and presence and holding space seems really impactful. I'm wondering how that relates to the work that the mentors do. So you mentioned that you're bringing in sort of subject matter experts, professionals for some of these sessions, introducing them to what it means to talk to a law firm, an attorney, or an accountant. What is the role of the mentors in working with these different programs, and what sort of spaces do they hold, or what sort of coaching and support do they provide?
So we have a pretty intimate mentor network. It's about 20 to 30 people, and we keep it fairly small, I think, for a reason, because when obviously they're these individuals that are part of our mentor network have a lot of subject matter expertise. They are for-profit leaders, nonprofit leaders, industry experts, which is great. But I think on top of that, I think what we look for is individuals who provide that level of sitting with entrepreneurs that Margaret was just talking about, who ask really good questions, who are good at giving advice, but more than anything, ask exactly the right questions that need to be asked to those entrepreneurs, and sit there with them in that process. If anything, maybe mentor is not even the right word. Maybe it's something more like coach, a sort of guiding force for those individuals. And just logistically, how we connect them is the mentor is expected to meet with the venture twice throughout the duration of the program, so about once per month, and then they can decide whether or not they want to continue that relationship. And we did that intentionally because, sometimes not all mentor-mentee relationships are going to work out, and that's absolutely okay. Or maybe there are some relationships where they meet twice, they get a lot of value, and they don't feel like they have to meet anymore. Or some, which we've had this happen before, continue to meet every 2 weeks after the duration of the program for months. And we want to allow that kind of flexibility for the relationship to build if it needs to, or not if it doesn't need to anymore.
So you use the word coaching, which we just actually recently had Eric from the library, who's was also a Collab venture at one point through the City Seed program. And he talked a lot about the impact of coaching as a skill set and as an educational tool. And so I was wondering, some of what you're describing really seems to be coaching. It's much more holistic, and is really motivated and driven by the goals that the entrepreneur is coming to the table with, and how to talk about and really refine those. Where did the ideas for this type of education that's offered through Collab come from? And where was the genesis of that was then sort of iterated on throughout the course of the last 2 years?
You mean the idea around like implementing a coaching like part of the program? Yeah, I'd be curious to hear Caroline's answer to this, but I think it was a pretty organic growth, and for us, I think we implemented the one-on-ones because not with an explicit intention to have it be a coaching session. Like we implemented it because we want to give one-on-one attention to this venture and this entrepreneur, and that's kind of how it started at the very, very beginning. But it very quickly became evident that space could be used for this, and was actually like best used for that. And I think some part of it too comes from our personal experiences too, like we being who we are and navigating this space and sort of being entrepreneurs of sorts, right? For us as well, like we come up against similar barriers and similar experiences, and we need that too, and we get that from a lot of our mentors and advisors, and I think that sort of naturally translated to the work that we do with entrepreneurs.
I think I'd add a couple things to that. I think one, we think a lot about, whether in the one-on-ones or in the sessions themselves, what does it mean for an entrepreneur to bring their whole selves to the work and whole selves to a room? Because we believe that if entrepreneurs are able to bring their whole selves, we feel this in our own personal experience, then the work is better. The business is better. The venture is better. It just every single time. And so how do we build space for that? And that means leaving space to have conversations around race and gender and how that shows up in the work that they do. That means sometimes crying together. And allowing space for all the different variety of emotions that comes up when you're putting yourself out there and taking a risk. I think the second thing I'd add too is I've had a lot of coaches in my life. I ran track and field and cross country and played basketball. And something that I noticed both in my coaches and in my teachers is my favorite teachers, the teachers that made an impact on me, were coaches and implemented a lot of the skill sets that coaches have, which is about imparting their own wisdom, but really about helping the individual find the wisdom that they already have within themselves. And I think that's something that we aim to do in our work, is trust the entrepreneur that as an entrepreneur, based on your expertise, the most about what you're trying to do. You are the expert in this room. And how do we just bring out the expertise that you already have? And I think that's what the best coaches do already, whether it's on a basketball court or sitting one-on-one in the library. So
where were some of the other sources of inspiration for the curriculum or the lessons? Are there other places that you're looking where you're seeing this kind of education offered in a different setting or in a different way that sort of rhymes with the work that you're doing?
You mean like the curriculum and our attention to confidence and the coaching bit?
Or just entrepreneurship training broadly. Are there models that you're looking to emulate or borrow from, and either early on or now?
Mm-hmm. We when we first started off, I was working at the Yale Entrepreneurial Institute, which is called SciCity now. They were basically running student programming around entrepreneurship. So we took a lot of concepts from that, learned a lot from that. There wasn't anything available like that, like a program for just New Haven residents who had no affiliation with Yale. And so we wanted to sort of translate that over. And also we've taken inspiration from all different kinds of sort of accelerators across the country. We talked to a few in the early stages, sort of to get their thoughts. One that comes to mind is Propeller down in New Orleans. So they do similar work and sort of they have an explicit social impact focus, and they now have a fund and stuff like that. And so they've been doing this work for a long time. So we got a lot of inspiration from them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's exciting. I'll be checking out that space in New Orleans. I mean, what's fascinating to me is that without that specific type of social impact focus on the ventures that you're selecting, that the people who have the lived experience in New Haven, who are coming up with solutions to fix things in the city that could be ventures, for profit or nonprofit, they're coming in with those ideas. That is their passion in trying to address composting challenges and sustainability in our food system, inequality and oppression in wellness products, or whatever type of other sector they're entering. So what does somebody have at the end of their time in Collab? What's sort of that culmination that they can look back and say, this is what I have now to be ready to move forward?
Yeah. They have a more refined idea based on stronger assumptions. They have initial connections with community partners, service providers, mentors, and advisors that they can continue to rely on moving forward. They have a pitch deck and an experience under their belt pitching in front of 150 to 200 people. Many of them have relationships with funders and donors who can continue to further their work. And I think they have a community of entrepreneurs that they're leaving with. I think once a collaborator, always a collaborator is something that we say. And, you know, we have a cohort model for a reason. Like, these entrepreneurs really get to know each other and they support each other. And that continues on after. And they remain friends. They support each other. They shout each other out on social media. Like, and that's not unmeaningful. Like, that's a huge part, because entrepreneurship is so lonely at times. I think that community is something that they leave with. And, you know, we hope that they leave with an increased sense of confidence, an increased sense of self-awareness, a better understanding of how to take care of themselves while building something. Some of those things I think is really, really baked into the program, and that's also something that they tangibly leave with.
And I think an adjacent question to what an entrepreneur leaves with is, therefore, how do we measure our own success? And I think that we think about it kind of in two different categories. There's lots of traditional ways that accelerators measure themselves, things like follow-on funding or jobs created, or whether or not they're still in existence, revenue generated, etc. And we measure and track all of those, which is one kind of measuring success. We think those are incomplete measures of success, and that's why we get excited about measuring things like the last thing that Margaret talked about, things like connectedness, things like confidence. When entrepreneurs leave our program, do they know so many more people than they did beforehand? Do they feel more connected or have more a sense of like stance or presence in the city that they love? Do they feel more confident about their next steps, more confident about themselves, more confident about the way that they occupy rooms? Those are things that we get really excited about measuring, to be a complement or to help complete a fuller picture of how we are building a healthy entrepreneurial ecosystem in the city.
And so, what are ways that people can come see that connectedness or that community?
What do you mean?
Are there events that people can come to? Are there things coming up in 2 weeks that maybe they can come see the hard work of a cohort come to fruition?
Funny you should ask. Definitely. Yeah. So
Soft plug.
yeah. So we're right in the midst of completing our fall cohort, and as I said before, the culmination of that program is a pitch day, and that's December 4th from 6 to 8 at the State House. And just as a note, as we said before, it's really a celebration. It's we won't have judges. We kind of stray away from that kind of model. It's just a celebration of these folks' hard work and their progress, and a chance for a lot of them. They've never pitched in front of anyone, let alone a large audience before. And I think that's also just a special moment of a shift in what they believe is possible for themselves, or at least that's what entrepreneurs have told us after pitch day.
So that's December 4th at the State House.
That's right, at 6.
At 6. And what are some of the ventures that are in this cohort that people could come see and hear about?
Yes.
Oh man, there are so many. There's 6. Push to Start. Steve is working on a programming around that combines civic engagement, skateboarding, and arts education and arts empowerment for young people living in the Dixwell and New Hallville neighborhood. He's gonna give a presentation about sort of how he does his work, how he teaches, how he works with young people. So we're excited about that. Honeybee Project is a project that run by Sarah, who's a social worker working with foster care and child protective services involved young people in community gardens, working on hives to create honey products to sell. And so she'll be doing a presentation too. I mean, we can go through all of them, but those are the first 2 that come to mind. Check them out. There, if you go on the Facebook event, there's I think a link to our post about all of the ventures, and they're all really exciting.
And all really different, which is exciting to have them all in one cohort together.
So skateboarding, honey, lots of other interesting things. I'm going to cut out for a moment because Harry's giving me this look about reading the announcement, which is that we are listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM with the New Haven Innovation Podcast / radio show. Don't think we've come up with a formal answer on what we're going to be calling that, whether it's a radio show or a podcast. Because if you're listening to it on the radio, it's a radio show. We're broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. You can check us out on TuneIn Radio or newhavenindependent.org. Also streaming live on Facebook Live. Just go to New Haven Independent on Facebook and look us up. We had over 1,000 people watch the episode with the Holberton School, cool. Which was really exciting, considering we haven't really started promoting this in a way. We're sort of packaging it up to be a cohort of different podcasts. So jumping back into it, you mentioned that there are traditional ways of evaluating the success of an accelerator or an incubator. And so in thinking of that, just because traditional ways are usually how funders approach making those sorts of decisions, what are some of the success stories or key measures of the traditional ways of measuring success that we can look to Collab for having?
That follow the traditional metrics? A lot. I think about Havenly, which I think you might be familiar with. Havenly, they're an incredible program that works with immigrant and refugee chefs and goes through a job training program. And it's a social enterprise, so it's both a job training program multiple times per week with a cohort of women, as well as a bakery. And so they bake these delicious baklava and different treats that they then sell at local cafes and catering at different events. They are incredible. I think right now they're at 4 staff members, which I think they started with 1 executive director, and now they have 4 after I think it's only been 2.5 years. And they are located in multiple cafes. They're gonna be, if you all are excited or interested, there'll be some baklava at our pitch day. So their catering is skyrocketing, and I think most importantly, in checking in with them, their program's really working, and they're being continually iterative on their model in supporting these women in the program. And that's really the crux of what they do. And of course, all the bakery proceeds go directly to the salaries of the women in the program.
And also, Domingo, who Caroline mentioned earlier, with Peels and Wheels, he came to Collab with about 80 or so customers. And he was like, I need to expand. I need more customers. I need more funding. I need to learn how to do marketing better. And in order to handle more customers, I need a facility, like a bigger place to create the compost. And so he worked with us throughout the program on sort of teeing up for getting that kind of further investment to get that facility, as well as putting some infrastructure in place for that marketing and outreach to increase customers. And so with those two, he's been able to increase his customer base to, I believe, like 150 at this point and growing. He's hired more sort of like bikers part-time. He raised don't remember the exact number, like 60,000 or something, in order to get the facility to finally have his own place to create compost, to be able to produce more compost, potentially sell that compost as opposed to just donating it back or giving it, in addition to giving it to like New Haven Farms, being able to sell it potentially and packaging it as sort of New Haven compost. So that's in the future. And so that's a success story, just like in the traditional way that we like to tell as well.
Okay, great. And so, I mean, at least in some of those summary statistics, which is usually how I see some of those reporting up, that's over $400,000 in follow-on investment and revenues that are going back into New Haven jobs, and the broader social impact and betterment of New Haven that a lot of these ventures are doing. So that's really exciting from where I'm sitting over here, looking at Margaret's sparkling greens. So you mentioned just incredible familiarity with what a lot of these ventures are doing after graduation. So what are the ways that you continue to engage with, support, and connect people post pitch night, post graduation?
Yeah, a few different ways. The more formal ways are we have a yearly survey that we send out just to track their progress and see how they're doing. Two is that we have an email list that we send them various events, workshops that are tailored specifically to them and their needs, that we email to them fairly frequently. Three is that they often sign up for office hours or schedule time with us to meet with us to give an update and to track progress or to ask for support if they need to. And then a couple other ways come to mind. One is that and this is part of our model around accessibility, which is, of course, we think about accessibility in terms of just addressing some of these barriers, and whether it's childcare, transportation, interpretation services, providing those wraparound services. We think that should be a given for every single program, every single public meeting that exists in New Haven. We think that's a given. So it's like, what other ways can access? Can we make things more accessible? And we think a lot about what does it mean to co-create the vision of Collab with the entrepreneurs that we work with our friends, right? And so this past summer we had our first kind of entrepreneur reunion. We called it an entrepreneur roundtable, where we brought, I think, about 30 or so graduates. We invited everyone. About 30 graduates came and to talk about Collab, to help support us in thinking through the next steps for Collab, which was really exciting and deeply valuable and really helpful for us. And that's another way that they stay involved, and I think they have a lot of hunger for connection across cohorts and connection with their cohorts. And I think that the last thing I would say is, I think something that's so exciting about focusing on place is that we run into Eric Ray from SOPA probably 3 times a week at the library, because he's an entrepreneur in residence there. We run into our entrepreneurs, Della at Blue State on Orange Street, all the time, almost whenever we're there. And I think there's something really exciting about that kind of connectivity. I mean, a lot of the entrepreneurs are our friends. We care about them, their venture, but we care about them too as people. We go over to their place for dinner. Like that's also like, I'm not sure if I would say that's part of the work, but that's just like part of what it means to be doing this kind of work in a small city, where we're often all on the same page about a certain sense of like love and commitment and stake in place.
And so what are these office hours that you keep talking about, that seems like everybody has quite a lot of interest and hunger for participating in? It seems like you have a wait list.
Yeah, the office hours are basically just a little bit deeper than like an event or sort of a workshop, in that folks can sign up. Anyone can sign up, whether they're a part of a program or not. And they're 30-minute sessions either on the phone or in person at the library downtown, where we talk about whatever they want, their venture, what they're working on, what obstacles they're running into. We brainstorm together. Think of it as like a one-on-one session in the program, but shortened to 30 minutes and open to anyone. And so it's just an opportunity for them to show up with their idea and with what's going on. And we kind of sit with them and talk with them and make some initial connections, give some initial feedback and things like that. And some people come again and again. Like we've had people come once a week for 4 weeks, or I've met with the same person like sometimes 3 times, sometimes 6 times, sometimes 8 times, and obviously new people come all the time. So that's kind of the office hours program.
And just to place office hours in sort of the broader kind of the way we think about our programming, we think about it a little like a funnel or like a front lawn that then sort of guides down to higher levels of resources. So at the very top, we do a lot of different events around entrepreneurship, and that includes our pitch days, but also events that center the experiences of New Haven entrepreneurs. So things like women and mothers in entrepreneurship, or immigrants in entrepreneurship, or youth in entrepreneurship, panel discussions, storytelling conversations around talking about the experiences of being an entrepreneur in this city. And then a second kind of event we do is just skills-based workshops like business planning or how to access funding, etc. And then from there, we have our office hours program. So oftentimes we've touched, I think, something like 1,500, 2,000 folks through our events. And then our office hours program, I think we've probably conducted at this point over 700 office hours. And then we have our accelerator, which we've had around 50 graduates from that program.
Okay, and where do people go if they want to learn more about how to plug into any portion of that funnel down into the pitch night on December 4th?
Yeah, so our website's good. So it's www.collabnewhaven.org, and we tried to build it such that it guides an entrepreneur through the process of like where to start and what things that they should tap into in terms of our resources and programming. And then our Facebook, which is also Collab, actually CT, is also a useful place to kind of stay plugged in. And on our website, you can sign up for our newsletter, which we probably send about once every 2 weeks or so, an email about the events that are going on.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a great way for people to follow up if they're just falling in love with Collab as an idea, and have an idea that they want to get off the ground, or potentially share this with somebody who's just been talking about starting something new for a while and might need some coaching or support or additional networks to get to that next step. So thank you so much for both coming on this morning. I've really appreciated talking with you. We have been listening to WNHH-LP 103.5 here at the New Haven Independent. Thank you so much.
Thank
you, Michael.
Is there any last things we want to leave people with? News, thoughts?
I think the only thought would be, I mean, whenever we have a chance, we just always want to express gratitude. Like, it feels always really good to be held by the city that we love. We've been in New Haven now for probably getting to be over 10 years, and we love and care about this city and have been just very grateful for the way it's challenged us, held us accountable, and made us better as a result. So just a note of gratitude for all our friends and supporters.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, and have a great Thanksgiving.
You too.